What happens when a successful entrepreneur sits down for what should be a simple interview, only to face an onslaught of disrespect and condescension from a host who refuses to listen? In just 47 seconds, Denise Welch turned a conversation into a battleground that would end with a guest walking off set and the studio erupting into absolute chaos. Dr. Sara Al Madani walked onto the set expecting a thoughtful conversation about business, resilience, and empowering women. She had built multiple companies from the ground up, spoken at global conferences, and become a role model for thousands of aspiring entrepreneurs. She was prepared to talk strategy, leadership, and the realities of navigating competitive industries. What she wasn't prepared for was having her credibility subtly questioned before she had even finished her first answer. Denise Welch opened with a question that sounded harmless on the surface. How does someone like you manage to succeed in business when there are so many obstacles in your way? The phrase "someone like you" lingered in the air. It was subtle, but deliberate enough to create tension. Sara maintained a professional smile and spoke about discipline, consistency, and refusing to accept limits imposed by others. But the tone shifted quickly. Denise leaned back with visible skepticism. Surely you had help. Nobody builds success entirely on their own. Sara acknowledged mentors and support systems, but emphasized the years of rejection, failure, and long nights that shaped her journey. She kept her voice calm, measured, steady. Then came the implication that changed everything. Denise suggested that in Sara's part of the world, opportunities might operate differently, that perhaps certain advantages had played a role. The panel grew visibly uncomfortable. The audience quieted. Sara responded carefully. My success is built on strategy and execution, like any entrepreneur. But Denise pressed harder, suggesting that viewers deserved the full picture. It no longer felt like curiosity. It felt like doubt. Nadia attempted to redirect the discussion toward Sara's diverse business portfolio, but Denise interrupted, returning to the insinuation that not everyone starts from the same place. The implication was clear. Sara's achievements were being minimized. The tension escalated. Applause from the audience began to build in support of Sara's composed responses. Denise's questioning grew sharper. Sara's composure remained intact, but there was steel beneath her calm. Finally, Sara leaned forward slightly and asked, "What exactly are you implying?" The studio seemed to hold its breath. Denise gestured vaguely about culture, connections, and doors opening in certain circles. Gasps rippled through the audience. Sara's voice didn't waver. I've worked in rooms where I was the only woman present. I've faced rejection and bias. So please, tell me more about these privileges. The applause was louder now. Denise accused her. The atmosphere in the studio had shifted completely. What was meant to be a celebratory conversation about entrepreneurship now felt like a standoff. Denise straightened in her chair, clearly unwilling to concede ground. I'm simply asking the questions people at home are thinking, she insisted, her voice tight. We can't just accept every success story without examining the context. Sara inhaled slowly before responding. Examining context is fair. Questioning legitimacy without evidence is not. Her tone remained steady, but there was unmistakable firmness now. Linda attempted to ease the tension. I think what's impressive is how many industries you've managed to build in, she offered gently. But Denise cut in before Sara could respond. No, because this matters, Denise said sharply. Not everyone has the same opportunities. Some people benefit from systems that others don't. The audience shifted again, murmurs rippling through the studio. Sara turned slightly toward Denise. You're absolutely right. Not everyone has equal opportunity. That's why I dedicate time and resources to mentoring young women who don't have access to networks or capital, because I understand what it feels like to fight for a seat at the table. But your background isn't exactly disadvantaged, Denise pressed. The implication hung heavily in the air. Sara's eyes narrowed slightly, though her composure never broke. Different how? She asked. Denise gestured vaguely. Your culture, your connections, certain doors being open. An audible gasp echoed from somewhere in the audience. Nadia's mouth parted in disbelief. Linda stared down at her notes. The discomfort was no longer subtle, it was palpable. Privileges, Sara repeated carefully. I've walked into meetings where I was told I shouldn't be leading. I've negotiated contracts with people who assumed I wouldn't understand the numbers. I've been underestimated more times than I can count. Denise shifted defensively. There's no need to be so defensive. I'm not defensive, Sara replied evenly. I'm responding to what sounds like a suggestion that my achievements aren't earned. Denise's tone hardened. You're twisting my words. I'm repeating them, Sara answered. Applause broke out again, stronger this time. Several audience members nodded openly. Denise glanced toward them, visibly irritated. This is what happens when you try to have real conversations. Denise muttered toward the camera. People can't handle the truth. Sara leaned forward slightly. The truth? The truth is that you invited me here to discuss entrepreneurship. Instead, you've questioned whether I deserve to be successful. Denise's composure cracked. How dare you suggest I'm prejudiced? I've supported women's rights for decades. Then act like it, Sara said calmly. The studio went silent. Even the production crew seemed frozen. The exchange had crossed from tense into historic. This was no longer subtle tension, it was open. The tension had reached a breaking point. Denise turned toward the camera with theatrical disbelief, as if appealing directly to the viewers at home. This is what happens when you try to have an honest discussion, she said sharply. Some people just can't handle tough questions. Sara's expression changed. The polite restraint she had maintained since the beginning was gone, replaced by calm certainty. Tough questions are about strategy, leadership, decision-making. She replied, what you've asked me are questions designed to cast doubt on whether I belong here at all. The audience responded instantly, applause swelling across the studio. Denise looked rattled. I have interviewed hundreds of guests, she snapped, and I have never been spoken to like this. Maybe your other guests didn't feel comfortable calling you out. Sara responded evenly. Or maybe they weren't treated the way I've been treated today. Nadia leaned forward, trying again to restore balance. Maybe we can all just take a breath and reset. No, Sara interrupted gently but firmly. I came here in good faith. I came here to inspire women watching at home. Instead, I've been subjected to insinuations about my credibility. Denise scoffed loudly. Oh please, you expected an easy ride. I expected professionalism, Sara replied. A murmur of agreement spread through the audience. Then came the question that shifted everything. If I were a white British businessman, Sara said slowly, locking eyes with Denise, would you be questioning whether I deserve my success? Would you be suggesting my achievements were just luck or connections? Denise opened her mouth, then hesitated. This isn't about race. I didn't mention race, Sara said calmly. I asked about perception. The crowd reacted with a collective intake of breath. Denise's composure began to unravel. You're twisting this into something it's not. No, Sara answered. I'm pointing out the pattern. The silence in the studio was deafening. Even Linda, who had remained cautious throughout, looked unsettled. Denise's frustration spilled over. You know what? Maybe you're not used to being challenged. Sara let out a short, disbelieving laugh. I've built businesses in competitive markets. I've negotiated with investors who doubted me before I even opened my mouth. Challenge doesn't scare me. Disrespect does. The applause was louder than ever now. Some audience members were visibly standing. Denise's voice dropped, low and sharp. If you don't like the questions, you're free to leave. The moment hung suspended in time. Sara calmly reached for her microphone clip. Thank you for that suggestion, she said quietly. Because I won't sit in a space where my accomplishments are treated like an accident. Gasps filled the studio as she began to unhook the mic. Nadia stood up. Please don't go. We can fix this. Sara offered her a small, appreciative smile. This isn't about fixing a moment. It's ABO. Sara reached the edge of the set and paused for just a second before stepping down. Her head held high. The audience reaction was chaotic. Applause, scattered cheers. Shocked murmurs blending into one overwhelming wave of sound. Cameras stayed locked in place, capturing every second of what had just unfolded. Denise stood frozen for a moment, then turned sharply back toward the desk. That, she said, her voice trembling with anger, was completely unacceptable. But something had shifted. The authority in her tone no longer carried the same weight. Nadia and Linda remained seated, visibly shaken. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The silence was louder than any argument. Finally, Linda cleared her throat. Actually, Denise, I think Sara had a point. The words landed heavily. Denise's head snapped toward her co-host. Excuse me. I'm just saying, Linda continued cautiously. Some of the questions did come across a bit pointed. Pointed, Denise repeated, disbelief written across her face. I was doing my job. Nadia nodded slowly. It wasn't necessarily what you asked. It was how you asked it. It felt hostile. A ripple of quiet agreement moved through the audience. Denise looked around, searching for support, but found none. Hostile, she said, her voice rising again. So now I'm the villain for asking legitimate questions? No one's saying you're a villain, Nadia replied gently. But she clearly felt disrespected. And honestly, Linda added, choosing her words carefully, I can understand why. The admission hung in the air like a final verdict. Denise's composure cracked further. She walked off our show, she said sharply. She disrespected this program. Or, Nadia countered softly, she refused to accept being disrespected. The audience murmured again. Some nodded openly. Denise stared at both of them, stunned. I cannot believe you're both taking her side. There shouldn't be sides, Linda replied. But if we're being honest, the interview escalated because it kept circling back to questioning her legitimacy. Denise shook her head. I did nothing wrong. Denise, Nadia said carefully. Sometimes being called out doesn't mean you're being attacked. It means there's something to reflect on. That was the moment everything truly collapsed. Fine. Denise snapped, reaching for her microphone. If I'm such a problem, maybe I'm the one who should leave. Denise, don't, Linda urged, but it was too late. In a mirror image of what had happened minutes earlier, Denise unhooked her mic and stepped away from the desk. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone watching. 2 women, 2 exits, 1 explosive interview. As Denise walked off in the opposite direction Sara had taken, the studio sat in stunned disbelief. Nadia turned to the camera, forcing a strained smile. Well, this has certainly been an unexpected show. Linda exhaled slowly. We're going to take a short break, she added, her voice unsteady. And when we come back, we'll